Welcome to From Doubt to Destiny,
the podcast where dreams come alive. I'm Eden Ryder, the dream maker.
And I'm Stacie Trott, the queen maker. We're here to give your dreams the royal treatment that they deserve. Get ready to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.
Welcome back to From Doubt to Destiny. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you've consumed some content already and are enjoying the space that we've created. I'm Stacie. This is Eden. You probably already heard that in our intro, but we're just happy to be here. And every conversation that we have, at least for now, we are going to frame it with the 4 T's, which are there's going to be a topic, there will be attention we'll discuss around it, a transformation wherever we are in the process surrounds how we're navigating that topic and addressing the tension. And then hopefully we'll also crystallize some takeaways for you, action items that you can do for yourself. The purpose of being here is to empower and encourage for endurance. I think if I say it enough times, it'll make its way into my bones. It's in there already though. And, if you've listened to anything we've done already, we're big into alliteration. So there's the T's and there's the I's. The I's are impact and influence. It's why we're here. That's what we want to do. And then we have a developmental journey path that has 7 words that start with the letter D. So we like to just kind of have some framework and structure around things. But today's topic is, which I don't think I teed up yet, passion and purpose. So passion and purpose, what is it? Those are big words. I don't know if we need to define them, but we can say, what's my relationship today with passion and purpose? I feel like I'm in a really good place with passion and purpose. Doesn't mean I have executed, my work is done, but I feel like I am the most clear on purpose and leaning in to passion. Doing this podcast, having conversations where I feel like I'm using some of the gifts and the talents that God has blessed me with for the benefit of others makes me feel like I'm on purpose and in passion, which is a great place and space to be. I don't know if I want to really think about tension per se with it because I'm in such a good place around it. But I will say, I think one of the big things that I just heard something recently on another podcast I was listening to. I'm a podcast now producer and consumer. But in a podcast I was listening to, a gentleman whose first name I don't recall, but it was the podcast with the Perrys, which I enjoy. They had a guest on whose last name was Mason, Dr. Mason, and he said something that jumped out to me, so I jotted it down. He said there's a difference between purpose and assignment. So that's what I'm thinking of in connection with the attention. And he said, as Christians, if you are a Christian, which I am, purpose is to make disciples and preach the gospel. So there's this unified purpose. And this is just the medium through which he tried to describe the difference between purpose and assignment. And he said, so this body of Christians all have a unified purpose, but we all have different assignments. An assignment is only an assignment if it serves the larger purpose. I really liked that. And he said, so your assignment could be you're a doctor. And in the space of being a doctor, you find organic ways to share your faith, or you show your faith through the way you love and care for people and just using your gifts that God has given you. So your assignment is the medium through which you are moving towards or operating in purpose. So I thought that was a really beautiful way of describing what's my purpose. What's my purpose? Well, if you're part of something that is anchoring and grounding for you, like my Christian faith is for me, purpose is already defined, but how I show up in executing it, that's the mystery. That's the figuring it out. What's my assignment? And I think during different seasons, you can have different assignments. So they shift and change. I will tell you that as an introvert who enjoys her introvertedness, sitting here doing this podcast is me being on assignment. So, and I think the beauty of when your assignment is connected to the purpose, there's a organic fluidity to it that makes you feel a sense of probably, I would say, passion for it, right? So even though I'm introverted, because I feel that this assignment is aligned with the purpose. There's a passion that has shown up that is like even surprised me from the moment we talked about doing this together. There was like, this is funny, I felt a little baby leap in my stomach. I say that because Eden's pregnant with an actual human baby in her belly, but I felt a baby leap, like something was being birthed. And so even though there are parts of it that are like uncomfortable and not necessarily organically connected to maybe my area of defaults, I am on assignment, connected to purpose, and it's invigorating a passion in me for a space that I didn't know. So I used all the words. How are you feeling, Eden, about purpose and passion?
I feel great about it now, and very much living it and feeling very much like I know my purpose. I know I have a lot of passions, but I think for me, this topic is one that I feel like strongly about, but in a way of like, I truly empathize with people who like feel lost or like they don't, because that was a huge part of my journey. And I would say probably that really much so like in the doing and figuring out and trying all the things like the past 10 years, it was heavy in that. And I was always super, super envious of people who seem to just know it, or they like radiated it. And again, it was so obvious to me. And
can I pause you there for a second? Because I think that because you've shared that you realize now you're very good at identifying other people's superpowers. It was probably almost heightened for you because you had the gift of being able to see it in others. So for you, you probably saw like everybody else knew who they were. And some of those people maybe didn't even know who they were, but because you have the gift of being able to see someone else's purpose and how to kind of help extract that and pull that out, for you, it felt like you were like a very isolating. Yeah, I was just going to say a very isolating thing for you, which is like, it's almost like Superman. Like he was the only one who could fly. Like you didn't even notice that your superpower made you feel isolated.
Yeah, true.
And I think superpowers do that. Superpowers do that. Sometimes you're like, am I the only one that can do this or that can see this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was probably also isolating for you, magnified for you because of your superpower.
Yeah. So I feel like it has always been something I've been very sensitive to, like, or I like would try to almost like block it out for a while. So that was very much like, oh, well, I'm going to become a wife and mother. And like, that's my purpose. And that's it. So for me, it's like, I'm in such a good space now, but it was the biggest frustration to me when people are like, well, you're just not like trying hard enough, or like, you're not, cause I'm like, I don't think it's that easy. So I don't want to like gloss over that process because I know what the space I'm in now, but it took me a long time, and it was a very long, like, I guess not long, and like, I started enjoying it, but like a self-discovery process. And I will still say, I don't think I'll ever stop that, because I think it will like evolve into I think I am to a space now where my purpose to me is very clear and a lot of passion. So like you said, like the assignments may change. Yes. But I think even getting the clarity around those passions and that purpose was such a journey. And I have tried all the things, done so much that I feel like it could be a million different episodes to like even just talk about that. Or it could be like a course on that. So I feel like I understand even though I'm not like living in that tension right now, that tension is very like real to me, where I can connect to it. Like I can feel those feelings and I can empathize with people who feel like that, like like you kind of feel like a little bit lost, or
a lot of lost.
Yes. Or like, or like there's that lack of like a deeper meaning, or like, why am I even doing this? Or
why am I here?
Yes. Why am I here? Even if like you're in a job you don't love. And a lot of times we tie, like, cause I think the dream is like, if your passions and purpose and a moneymaker can align, like that's like the dream. So I think a lot of times we get boxed into like, and like education system, like you think of it as in like a career, which for me, that was always extremely limiting. Yes. So
also because entrepreneur isn't one of those things that they list for you when you're growing up, right? It's like, do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a fireman? Do you want to be a police officer?
Right. I don't remember. Pick this field. Like, do you want to do marketing? Do you want to do accounting? Like, what or business?
I don't remember entrepreneur ever being on the list.
Because it's not. Because I think typically entrepreneurs are the ones that bucked against the system to begin with, and a lot of times like didn't go to school or dropped out. Or
well, I hope now it is on the
it's
list,
evolving,
right? Because we evolved into it, but 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it wasn't on the list. Not that I recall. So even what you are now in this particular moment, it was on the list,
right?
Which is why you probably had such a hard time finding, because you looked at the list and you were like, I don't see my name there.
Yes,
because it wasn't. And so it's like, I appreciate the level of empathy, and I totally know what you mean when you're like, I'm out of it now, but if you asked me, I could connect with it to the point where I could feel it as if it was happening again, because that's how big it was for me when it was happening. So what I thought of when you were saying that was, I was actively listening to you. I heard there's a song right now that just won a bunch of awards, and it's Billie Eilish's song, What Was I Made For? And I think that you would think I'm like a fan of this Barbie movie because we talked about it in another episode, but good movie. But what I remember are two things. One, that scene where America Ferrera says the whole thing that I've read, yes. But the other thing I remember was when I got to the end of the movie, I typically don't listen to the music or read the credits. I'm kind of done with it. But that song, What Was I Made For, came on. And it captivated me, held my attention while I listened to it, and then I stopped it and I rewound it and I listened to it again. And I think that at the core of not just women, but humanity, there's this question of what was I made for?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why am I here? And is there purpose? So I think she wrote it at a time when I don't know if there's anyone saying why that song landed so hard, because I think it was so vulnerable and transparent. And even in the we're in the best place we've ever been around purpose and passion, there's still a bit of what was I made for? And I think I'm in it now. I hope I'm in it now. But somewhere there's still a question of, is this what I was made for? Could it possibly be that I was made to impact and influence and empower and encourage? Like, the bigness of it can be overwhelming. So I thought, this is an easy topic to talk about. But it hits hard in the belly. Like, it hits at the core of what was I made for? And is there something large? Dare I dream that I was meant to be? I really identify every time I see someone accept an award that's like, I'm standing here and this is happening, but it's like I'm watching it happen because I can't believe I'm the one.
Absolutely.
It's me. And so I think I'm embracing it, and I kind of see myself in moments where I'm going to pinch myself and be like, but yeah, so passion and purpose can be frustrating when you don't know what it is. Exciting when you start to realize, I think I'm figuring it out. And then it can be empowering and exhilarating when you're totally in it and you're doing it and it's happening and you're on assignment connected to purpose. It's really, I would say, I hope if you're listening and you're struggling with it, you can feel the empathy in how you just shared. I can really connect with people who are struggling with it, because it sounds like you struggled for a decade plus.
Yeah, I'd say around there, probably 7. Yeah.
Really?
Where I'd say actively in the searching. I think before that I shut it out, and it was just more okay, you need obviously do the things you have to do the day to day, and I always wanted to be successful. So go to school, get the good job. But I was more I need to find my person. Because your purpose is to get married and have kids. There's that order and there's those things. So
forget purpose. I got to find my person.
Yeah. That's my purpose. I was clearly it felt I had this instinctual, I do know I want to be a wife. I do know I want to be a mother. So I'm maybe that's it for me. Maybe I'm just supposed to give to other people and that's it. So I feel that first half was more, I wasn't even thinking about, I was just that's it. Cause I'm I already just wiped my hands. I'm done. I don't have that other thing. So it was in a discovery process of, that's a whole other story. I don't know, relationship and I'm just
I was just going to say there's a whole there.
But I would say from 26, I'm 36 now. Yeah. So and I feel like I've been in like a few years now of like, it's all coming together.
Yeah.
So I would say of like just the discovery process, trying all the things, like the ups and downs, the doubt, the whole probably our
all the
little
D's.
path. Yeah. It's been really this past, I would say like 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I think the 3, if I'm doing my math right, it's been more solidified and like just been coming together and all finally like manifesting into like the real world. But before that, yeah, it was a lot of
Pain.
Self-discovery, like highlight, but like a lot of self-discovery. Like I can literally like say like just so much, like the things I tried to like, I went to ballet class at 26 years old.
Because
like,
you were thinking you would be what, a professional?
No, but I just realized like, I think at times, and it's interesting now, like having my own daughter, like I was like, well, maybe my parents should have forced me to do stuff. Like maybe it's because I wasn't exposed to things.
Yes.
And like
Lack
I was
of exposure.
pretty shy and like, you know what I mean? So I was like, I remember finding myself saying like, I wish I took ballet. And I'm like, you know what?
I'll take it now.
So like I took ballet class. I took like belly dancing class. I did like a pole class, like with a friend. Like I did all of these things and just trying things. Like I did the yoga teacher training, but just and realized like in the trying and the doing, like you learn so much about yourself and like it just gave myself permission to like try more things. And yeah, like I think I did all I would even like Google like, how do you find your passion? How do you find I've taken all of like the quizzes, the courses,
and the tests and the analysis to spit out an answer. I did write down, and we're jumping ahead, but when I was writing down things that I think are transformational thoughts and takeaways, one of them I wrote down was take a spiritual gifts test, because I did that and I learned things about myself by answering those questions that, you know, the Bible says everyone has been given gifts. And so I'm like, okay, if that's true, what are mine? It's not like we come out with a manual that says, here is Stacie Elizabeth Trott and here are her gifts. Like, so I took that test more than once, but I remember the first time I took it, my highest ranking score was exhortation, which means encouragement. And it was like, I don't think I knew I had that gift until I took the test and it spit out that answer and it was in there, but I didn't have the awareness of it.
Right.
And so then I wasn't able to own it the way that I needed to, because I didn't know I had it. I was using it, but almost like sporadically and by accident. And so when I saw it as an answer to a bunch of questions that I answered, I felt like, oh, now I can start owning this. Yeah. I can use this.
Like kind of give you a little bit of permission to like.
It was in my toolbox and I had to discover it. And so I totally understand self-discovery. And you were saying you took one of the, all these tests to see what, who am I? What is this? What, so yes, that was one of the things I would recommend if you've never done it. It's really nice to know kind of what are some of the things that have been buried in me that now I can start utilizing. And one of the other things I wrote down was discuss who you are and what you're good at with people that know and love you. And then I added, and are not competing with you.
Yes.
Because at first I was thinking, people that know you, okay, well, and they have to love you. And I'm like, they can't be competing with you, because I think there are some people in your life who know you. I don't know how much they love you if they're competing with you, but you think they're maybe a loved one. And if they're competing with you, they may find ways to talk about your gifts in a way that are negative. You know what I mean? There's a lens through which people can talk that's almost like positive criticism. And so you kind of, and because we tend to remember the criticism, we don't really stick with the positive part. And so something that you're really good at, someone criticizes you for, and then all of a sudden, instead of you using it as a superpower, you try to dim the light. Yeah. Because someone tells you that it's too bright, and it's really too bright for them. And you should just shine as brightly as you are. So I would say discussing, what your gifts possibly are, what your superpowers are, with people that know you, love you, and are not competing with you. And you can discover some things that way too. I don't know if you mentioned in another episode that you got feedback from some of your coworkers about who you are, and there were themes that were repeated. So maybe you want to retell that in a short way so people know, like, hey, this is a thing. I can maybe ask for feedback.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually, even before that, I had even done it because it was one of those things I found online, and it was like all these little questions, but it did say like ask people close to you that you trust, and that have kind of been like a support to you or whatever, and like what when they think of you, like what are the first like 3 words that come to mind, or
love that.
What would you? So I remember doing that with like this one woman who I absolutely love, who I worked with for like many, many years. And it was very like helpful and insightful and informative.
Yeah.
And then interesting, like you said, even like when I was younger, like being involved in church, it was good. And like volunteering, like actually, like I feel like I was like recruited, but in like a good way of like people observing you and noticing you. And then I noticed the same thing, like 3 different women like were saying the same thing and they wanted me for certain. So like it helps when it's people that are doing it and they don't like, they're not gaining anything from it. Or I do think when sometimes like to your point, when people are too close to you, in a way, like people kind of expect you to stay in this box for like their own comfort zone. So if you are trying to break out of that, it makes them uncomfortable. So I don't even think they're intending it. I don't think it's malicious, but it's impactful. It's making them uncomfortable, and they love you and they love their relationship with you and they don't want it to change. So again, I think that's a whole other episode as well. But so with that, then later on in life, yes, I had a boss who for birthdays in our office, she would do a Google form, and it was like I said yes for birthdays. So she would ask like,
what were the 2 questions?
It was 3 questions. It was, what do I appreciate about Eden? What is Eden's superpower? And then like, what do I admire about Eden? And then she'd list like whatever it was, like 5 to 7 in each of the one, or if there was like overlapping or whatever. And like, I remember for me specifically, like there was just so much overlap even across them or like within them. And it was very, again, insightful, because I know we've talked about like the whole good girl thing, whatever that, like sometimes it can be hard to just accept it. Like, again, if you think of it, it's like a gift, but like you don't want to then feel like you're being like too like boastful, or like if it's like I like somehow was turning it into like a negative thing, but receiving that feedback from someone that they see it a way that you're too close to, and it's just, you're just being like, you're just being and doing. So like to you, that's your normal. You don't know anything different. So I think sometimes it takes the outside perspective to notice that it's a gift, because
that's one of the ways to see your gift is how it's impacting others.
It's right.
I remember the first time that someone shared with me that something I said to them was really impactful.
Right.
And I specifically remember this girl who was a friend of a friend, and we must have had some time where we were together. We talked. I said some things. I had no memory of anything that I said. And for me, it was just, I'm having a conversation. Right. So there was no intentionality to it, no thought connected to it. It was literally like
in the moment,
autopilot for me, but revolutionary in her thinking. And when whatever amount of time passed, we saw each other again at some event. And she was like, you said something that really impacted how I think, and I made these changes. And I was like, what are you talking about? Slow down. What did I say? And what did you do? I think she had either broken up or gotten back together with someone and moved across the country. It was something like across the world. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then something similar happened again. And then I was like, wait a minute. You have the ability to impact people's lives with your words. I don't ever plan it. So it's nice, because if I tried, I think I would mess it up.
Right.
I just allow it to come to me and then through me. And one of the things that's really, I'm kind of accepting it. I've leaned into it. Right. It's all good. But whenever I have an opportunity where someone either wants me to speak or do something, I go, well, what am I going to say? I have nothing to say. Well, how am I going to recreate what I did before? And it's like, just show up and open your mouth. God will fill it with words. And the things that are come out are the things he wants you to say. And he doesn't ever reveal it to me beforehand, because I would try to probably get in there and like add my little stuff to it or fix it. Or I think you had said something about like refining and revising. And so it's like, I'll walk into a situation out of clue for the most part what I'm going to say. Or I may have notes if it's something that I have to prepare for. And then I'll end up talking about something completely different from what I wrote. And I'm totally almost enamored on from the outside looking in the gift, because I'm as impacted by it when it's happening as it's happening for the benefit of the other person. So that's part of just kind of being in purpose and on purpose, just showing up and saying, okay, God, use me. I understand now part of why I'm here is so that you can use me. Okay, I'm willing to go and do and be, because you designed me for such a time as this to impact and influence however you want. And there's a lot of freedom in that. Yeah. And there's a lot of enoughness in that. There's a lot of beauty in that. So I'm grateful that we could sit here and have this conversation about passion and purpose and have a really positive connection to it. Imagine if we were having this conversation 10 years ago.
Oh, I don't think I could have it.
Correct. We wouldn't be here. Correct. 100%.
Or on anyone else's podcast for that matter.
Yeah, so. Right. And that kind of came to me for the benefit of saying, if you're not where we are and you're listening to this, please, 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 please do not compare yourself to where we are. Be encouraged. Let it be an empowering thought. This could just be a seed that's being planted for this moment. In time, someone will come along and water it, and eventually fruit will come from it. I remember saying to a family member recently, who she's family to me through marriage, and she's their new family, so she doesn't know me that well. And we had a conversation where she wanted to kind of just pick my brain about things. And I said all this stuff, and she was like, a lot of wows. And I said, please don't compare yourself to where I am now. I would not have been able to say these things to you when I am where you are now. Right. So do not compare the evolved version of me to the evolving version of you. And I hope that was helpful to her, because I could see her feeling like, okay, how do I do that? And it's like, it's not how. Just be inspired by it. File it away. Let it be encouraging to you. But keep doing what you're doing. And then I gave, some specific things. Like, you could do a few things here, like whatever you're interested in. I think she was like, I'm really into like classical music. So I like going, or opera. So she's like, I probably should do that more. And I'm like, if you enjoy that, go once a quarter. Yeah. So at the end of the year, you've gone 4 times. Right. That'll feel like a lot if it's something that's not being oxygenated. So you can find ways to like do more things you have passion about while she's trying to find purpose. And that's kind of where she was. She was like enamored by the fact that I'm like, girl, I am 45. Do not compare where you are in your 20s to where I am at 45. It's been a journey, and I couldn't have had this conversation with you 5 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. So, if you're feeling like, I wish I could be there, that the purpose of this conversation for us is not to have you feel in any way like shaming yourself for not being further along. It's definitely to just encourage and inspire you to dream bigger. Yeah, I think you want to add something to that.
I was saying, I think that it's interesting, because I had a similar thing I was going to say, and I think you had mentioned it earlier. Like, a big transformational moment for me was like, okay, it's not if I have it, it's like, what is it? Correct. So reframing it to not like this, what if I don't have it? And this that's where the anxiety comes, because it's like you're searching for this, or it's missing, or like something got screwed up when you made me, like something like that. Where I'm like, okay, no, it's there. Yeah. But like, I have to go on this self-discovery process. And I think I'd mentioned this, I don't know, maybe you're not, but like, I think a lot of the joy gets taken away when you don't enjoy that process, enjoy where you at. Like, to me, it makes me think of like, when you're like single and you're like, oh, I just want to be married and I just want children. And then like the person who's married and then never enjoyed being single is like, you talk to like a girlfriend who's single and you're like, good Lord, like if I could just go back to that time of like going out with the girls, or like, you know what I mean? Or like when you then want the kid when you're married and you didn't. So like you're literally always living in your past or the future, and you're never actually like enjoying where you're at. So you say you want these things, but every time you were there, you were somewhere else. So I think for me, like a big transformation was getting curious and like truly enjoying it. Like I said, like taking classes, like I was going on like trips with girlfriends, like just doing all of these things and looking at it as something that's like fun and exciting. And it was also like creating a better relationship with myself, which was so important as someone who was previously always looking, I feel like, outside of myself, of like this person to complete me. And when you like realize that everything you have is like within you, and you just need, to your point too, I think, which I'm realizing more and more, you're not supposed to know. Like when I think at in 20s, you're like, it's like, oh my gosh, like now I don't mean this in a condescending way, because I used to hate when people would say it, but same. Like I meet it, I'm like, you're a baby. Like if I hated that. I hated it too, so I don't say it to them, but like now when I see people, I'm like, I know what they mean of like, you are expecting so much of yourself, and you're literally like just
at the beginning.
Like you're literally just starting out. Like you just got out of your parents' house. You just now are actually giving permission to like go and do all these things without your parents' influence, your teacher. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's crazy looking back, like the things I thought I should know without the...
Or not just that you should know, or that you thought you did know.
Yes, like the wisdom and the experience that like I still like realize at times of like, okay, give yourself grace
and
like,
space.
Yes, like look at how much you've evolved, look how much you've learned and are continuing to learn, and the beauty, like if you can just find the beauty in that process, and like there is just so much there. And I just hope, especially if you are in your 20s, whatever age, because I think you can do it at any time in life, but especially if you're in your 20s, of like really embracing that time, and especially that time that you can have with yourself, and like truly discover yourself and enjoy it. Like it's there, you're gonna figure it all out, it's all gonna come together.
It is. Just hold on, it will.
Yes. Yeah. Like, so just...
There are two things I heard, or that I was thinking of when you in what you said. I heard recently someone say the first part of your life is learning, the second part of your life is earning, and the third part of your life is serving. And so when you're in your 20s, that's still that first third. You're learning, just learn, absorb, but you don't have to have it all figured out. As you get into that second third of life, you'll then be able to be in your kind of window, they say, of your maximum potential for earning, because you've learned some things in that first third that you can now utilize in that second third. And then if you're blessed enough to get to the third third of life, you start giving it away, because it's about the serving, and you realize the whole point, because you finally have figured it out, is the serving, is the doing and the being for the benefit of others. That's how you actually benefit yourself. But it takes the journey to figure that out. And then there was one other thing that I had here. I recently heard, and you touched on this too. I can give credit to this one because I wrote it down. And there's a Chinese philosopher who I'll botch the name, but I think it's Tao Chu, who said, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. And if you are at peace, you are living in the present. And when I heard that, it resonated with me, because I have felt in the past depressed, in the present anxious. I felt all those things, depressed, anxious, and peace. And to think about where my mind is in time, in order to be feeling those feelings, it gave a level of depth and context to those feelings that then allows me to make sense of them when they're happening, to help know how do I need to reorient myself. So I may be sitting here, but my mind is there, and that's why I'm feeling this. So if I can shift and orient my mind back into the present where it needs to be, that's where the peace is. A different way of saying it is, I had heard someone describe why you can become anxious. The way they said it was, you're time jumping.
Yes.
And when you time jump, the reason why you have anxiety when you jump ahead is because God has not given you the grace that you will receive when you get to that period of time. So if I jump ahead, right now, I don't want to date the podcast, but I'll say right now, the year that I'm in, if I jump ahead 2 years and I start thinking about what could happen and what might happen, how I'm going to handle it, I'll start getting stressed. I'll start feeling anxious. How am I going to do this and this and this? And I'm trying to figure it out, but I don't have the grace that God's going to give me 2 years from now to handle these things that I'm anticipating. So I'm going to feel stressed if I jump ahead.
Yeah.
So stop jumping ahead. Stay present where the peace is, and the peace will go with me. And when the grace that's necessary to endure that thing that I'm thinking about that I shouldn't be thinking about will be there when I get there. But I've gotten ahead of myself. And more importantly, I've gotten ahead of God's grace. So it was a beautiful way to orient my thinking. And when you were saying that, I was like, just be present, enjoy the journey. But also, if it helps, think about the fact that the present is where the peace is. And it doesn't mean that what's going on in your life is perfect.
No.
And it doesn't mean that you may not be going through things. But if you sit in the presence, I kind of think of the present as being like the eye of the storm. The storm can be raging around you. But if you sit in the center of it, that's where it's quiet, even though there's a storm raging around you. So it doesn't mean you're not booked and busy. You're either in something, coming out of something, or about to go into something. So it's like, life, it has tumultuousness to it. There's turbulence, and that's going to be a part of our existence and being. But there's peace in the midst of it, especially if you're centered on, I'll stay here and I'll just go along the journey. And if I'm feeling anxious, I've jumped ahead. And if I'm feeling depressed, I'm trying to change something that's already happened that I cannot change. And I don't mean like the clinical depression. I mean just the getting low. Getting low in ways that I can pick myself out of if I just reorient my thinking. So passion and purpose, it can be heavy and weighted depending on how you're thinking about it. It can be heavy and weighted depending on where you are in your life. Do you want to mention any of our developmental path D's connected to it? I think you used some of the words already. Discovery was one you said.
Yeah.
There was definitely discernment, I would say, in what you've shared. I'm certain that you've made some decisions.
A lot of decisions.
Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. We are absolutely in a phase and stage of dreaming.
100%.
We're dreaming big now.
And in the doing.
And we're in the doing. And so I would say this podcast is an example of a fulfillment of destinies. Yeah. So you can quickly do it. You can do it longer and stronger. You can write it down. There's all different ways to do it. We're hoping it's an encouraging, just like tickler, like brain tickler teaser in a fun way. You can get a girlfriend. I recently had a girlfriend invite me to and I told you about this. Yeah. It was a, what is that?
Vision board.
A vision board night at her church. And it was fun because literally it was like, just tell us who you are with your name and use a word you want to describe. They gave us the permission to define and describe ourselves. So we each gave like one word. I had a phrase, not a word, and then we just cut things out of magazines and things and put it on a board. And the beauty of it was that I got together and I dreamt with the friends. And so we encourage you to take the developmental path journey words and sit with a friend. And you can even do it like not everybody can orient with themselves by themselves. Right. So you can sit with the friend and say, let's take this developmental path list of D's and see what we can come up with. And maybe you do it for each other.
Yeah.
Queen Maker and Dream Maker titles for us came up because we were able to better identify each other's superpowers. We would probably still be sitting at this table and not talking to you if we had to come up with our superpowers ourselves. So definitely use your village and utilize your network if you can't do it by yourself. But we encourage you to, one, know that there is purpose within you. It's already been defined. The verse that's coming to mind is a verse in the Bible that says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. You were created for a reason. And so if you don't yet know it, it just means you're not yet supposed to know. So keep going on the discovery journey, and it will come. And it will come when you're supposed to know it. I think if God had revealed to me where I am right now 10 years ago, I would have said, no, not. So I appreciate that he lets you know what you need to know when you're able to handle the knowledge of it. So just be still and wait if you don't. Hopefully that's encouraging. And if you're where we are and you're in passion, on purpose, feeling excited about it all, then we hopefully we'll be able to be in community and fellowship with you at some point, to be able to share stories, swap all the things, the testimonies, because those are also encouraging and empowering. Thank you so much for having another amazing conversation with me. We go into it thinking we know what we're going to talk about, and then I come out of it being like, that was so much more enlightening than I thought it was going to be. So thank you for having another conversation. Thank you for joining us. Until next time. Remember to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.